Okay, guys, so we are going to talk about starting with the New York Times article talking about the two women that have come forward to now name themselves and back their statements against Jonathan Majors. We're also going to look at an article from The Cut that was released at exactly 8 a.m. this morning, which suggests to me that it was pre-scheduled, unless it was coincidentally published at that exact time. And then a Rolling Stone article with Cheyenne Roundtree and Althea Legaspi, the same familiar names, also talking about these same two women that came forward to the New York Times. These are two women that were involved in the Rolling Stone statements. This headline here really just means that their name is now behind it and they're saying something more publicly. We're going to start with the New York Times article. Before we get into it, if you aren't up to speed, Priya Chaudhry had just filed a motion to permanently seal the Melena evidence in the trial. I'm not aware that there was a ruling yet, but sentencing was just delayed, and we know that the decision on another motion isn't going to come down until April 1st. So, as far as I know, there is no decision on the unsealing of the Melena evidence, which, if you guys want to give some suggestions, why do you think this information is suddenly coming forward now? Sentencing was just delayed, but he's been convicted since December 18th. So let's jump into it. So Jonathan Majors had a history of abuse in relationships, women say. The actor denied physical abuse. Separately, he said he wasn't told of accusations of misbehavior on the set of Lovecraft Country. Now, pin that part, because just pin it. We have to look at the who's who here. So this is by Melena Ryzik. Look at this byline here. Melena Ryzik spent more than 4 months interviewing people across the country who knew or worked with Jonathan Majors. So already, I have a question. How are we here with two people that were already known to Rolling Stone? That's what we're going to find out. These are people that were already known. But the person writing this spent more than 4 months separately interviewing these people. A separate initiative from what we had from Cheyenne Roundtree and Tatiana Siegel back in the spring and early summer. Let's see what it says. Since the actor Jonathan Majors was found guilty in December of assaulting and harassing a girlfriend, he has maintained his innocence and his hope of reviving a once skyrocketing career that disintegrated in the wake of his conviction. In a televised interview last month, he said that he had never struck a woman. That's the GMA interview. But in pretrial statements to the prosecution in the assault case and separately in interviews with the New York Times, another former girlfriend, Emma Duncan, accused him of emotionally and physically abusing her, choking her, throwing her around, and bruising her. A third, Maura Hooper, also said that he had emotionally abused her. So again, by third, we have Grace Jabari as number 1, then Emma Duncan, and then Maura Hooper. Speaking publicly for the first time, Miss Duncan and Miss Hooper, actresses who dated Mr. Majors before he shot to fame as a supervillain Kang in Marvel projects, described him as a controlling, threatening figure who isolated them from friends and career pursuits. You lose your sense of worth, Miss Duncan said. And in interviews with former colleagues, the Times found that Mr. Majors had a history of volatility on the set of the HBO series Lovecraft Country. Now this is important. That included confrontations with female coworkers that led them to complain to the network. So the network gets complaints, but Jonathan's unaware of them. So now we have an extra shot fired here at HBO, because it seems like nothing was done. That's not good if it was really reported to the network. It's not good for HBO. So HBO is either catching strays or this is legitimate and they should have taken action and they did not. On Thursday afternoon, a lawyer for Mr. Majors, Priya Chaudhry, said that Mr. Majors had not physically abused Miss Duncan. She described the relationship with both women as toxic and said that Mr. Majors was taking responsibility for his role in them. And remember, in that GMA interview, he does say, I was mean, I was a jerk in those relationships. I wasn't, my college years, I probably wasn't good to them, but I never laid my hands on a woman. And said that Mr. Majors was taking responsibility for his role in them. She added that countless women in the entertainment industry can attest to his professionalism. This article is based on interviews with 20 people including some who requested anonymity for fear of career repercussions and on statements submitted to the prosecution in the December case. So you see how they're stacking this. It's based on interviews with 20 people and statements submitted to the prosecution in the December case. So we're leading with this 20 people and then following it up with the statements, but we don't have clarification about how many statements and from how many people, in which Mr. Majors was found guilty of harassment and misdemeanor assault of Grace Jabari, a former girlfriend. So they're repeating this part again. He is scheduled to be sentenced in April, though his lawyers asked on Tuesday that the judge throw out the jury's guilty verdict. Emma Duncan, because we're going to talk about Emma Duncan. Emma Duncan got to know Mr. Majors, now 34, at a summer stock program in Chautauqua, New York, and was engaged to him from 2015 to 2019, she said. Maura Hooper, a fellow student when Mr. Majors attended the prestigious Yale School of Drama, dated him from 2013 to 2015. Both said they experienced his hot and cold tendencies. In the beginning of their relationships, he showered each with attention and seemingly romantic gestures, including quickly calling them Mrs. Majors, manipulative behavior they have come to understand as love bombing, which is underlined, so you can go and see that it's something that the Cleveland Clinic talks about. At first you feel, oh, I'm being loved, Miss Duncan said, and then you feel, I'm being erased. Ms. Chaudhry, his lawyer, said, these relationships are between young drama students and all began with mutual intensity. In interviews and pretrial statements to prosecutors in the case in which Mr. Majors was convicted, the women detailed multiple episodes in which he was a domineering or violent partner. So, we have pretrial statements that apparently the New York Times has. Ahead of the trial, the statements were submitted under the Melena rule, which lets the court decide whether the prosecution can introduce evidence to show a pattern of behavior. Without commenting publicly on their merit, the judge in Mr. Majors' case did not allow these statements into evidence. There is a high bar for allowing testimony about past behavior. The Times obtained the statements before the trial, so they've had them. The interactions they describe were subsequently confirmed to the Times by multiple friends of the women, in whom they confided, as well as by contemporaneous journal entries, text messages, photos, and, in Ms. Hooper's case, medical records. So how did they obtain the statements before the trial? If they were sealed. In July 2016, Miss Duncan and Mr. Majors were driving in Chautauqua when they began arguing, and Mr. Majors threatened to strangle and kill her, the statement says, one of several instances when violence loomed early in their relationship. Miss Chaudhry confirmed that there was an argument in the car, but said that Mr. Majors did not threaten to strangle or kill Miss Duncan. Later in the same month, Miss Duncan visited Mr. Majors in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he was filming Hostiles opposite Christian Bale. During the trip, she discovered messages between Mr. Majors and another woman on his Apple Watch. When Miss Duncan confronted him, Mr. Majors threw the watch out a taxi window, she said, an incident that Miss Chaudhry confirmed. Oh, so he's abusive for throwing his own watch out of a window. Back in the hotel, Miss Duncan started packing her things. Mr. Majors, the statement said, pushed Miss Duncan into the couch and began to choke her. He also stated, I'm going to kill you. He then threw her body across the room and said, I'm going to make sure you don't have children. When she made moves to leave, he apologized. Miss Chaudhry denied this account. This did not happen, she said, though she acknowledged that they had many serious arguments. She said that he is now choosing to take responsibility for his own part in that toxic relationship, focusing on himself and addressing his lifelong depression. In an incident in their Harlem apartment in October 2016, according to the statement, Mr. Majors picked her up, after an argument, and slammed her body into their mailbox. She had bruising on her back and arms and pain afterwards, the statement said. Mr. Majors also threatened to kill himself, a threat he repeated in later altercations. Mr. Majors' lawyer confirmed an incident, but said Miss Duncan was physically trying to stop him from harming himself, and during this they both fell into a mailbox. Nearly a year later, according to, which, if you're both falling, that sounds like forward momentum. Nearly a year later, according to Miss Duncan's statement, he threw her to the ground and bruised her forehead with his. Miss Chaudhry denied this. In April 2018, after Miss Duncan was unavailable by phone for about 40 minutes while at a friend's birthday party, Mr. Majors told her she should kill herself, she recalled. Miss Chaudhry said that Mr. Majors denied saying those words, but did say hurtful things, which he regrets. In February 2019, the statement said he flipped a table and broke chairs in their apartment and destroyed Miss Duncan's belongings and family heirlooms during one of her many attempts to end things. Later that year, when she realized that Mr. Majors was continuing an affair, so she says in the statement, she attempted many times to end things, but then she realizes that Mr. Majors was continuing an affair. He makes a fist and states, "Don't make me punch you," the statement says. She left the relationship not long after. His lawyer, Ms. Chaudhry, said that Mr. Majors denied making a fist or saying anything about punching or harming Miss Duncan, and that he had flipped his own flimsy fold-up table during an incident. Ms. Chaudhry accused Miss Duncan of slapping or hitting Mr. Majors across the face and head several times. She did not immediately provide details. Well, we don't really have details about the other things either. Miss Duncan said her own account was well documented. "I stand by the events described," she said. "Then why didn't you come testify?" Mr. Majors had begun drawing attention for his acting while he was still a student at Yale. After graduation, his ascent, and is that the one that's from Chautauqua? Hold on, Duncan. Yeah, so Duncan's based in, I guess it was a summer program, so maybe she doesn't actually live there. But they were engaged for 4 years or whatever, and that's how that went. Mr. Majors had begun drawing attention for his acting while he was still a student at Yale. After graduation, his ascent was quick, and directors praised his standout charisma, versatility, and ability to reflect nuance. In 2019, Mr. Majors began principal filming on Lovecraft Country, his first project as a lead actor. Though he earned an Emmy nomination, it was a difficult shoot, according to 9 people associated with the production. The subject matter, which dealt with race in mid-century America, was heavy, and the episodes, with sci-fi and horror elements, were complicated with grindingly long days. In interviews with cast and crew members, they described Mr. Majors' demeanor changing depending on whom he was surrounded by. He was often a buddy to male technicians and craftspeople, but to women, he could be testy and prone to argument. Hold on, didn't a male come out and accuse him of being, bad to him? Him specifically. The male that came out said that he was bad to me. So this doesn't make sense. He was often a buddy to male technicians and craftspeople. This is narrative making. But to women, he could be testy and prone to argument. Women on set warned one another to tread carefully around him, multiple people said. Sure. Jessica Polini, a veteran with more than a decade in the TV industry, from Boardwalk Empire, Yellowstone, came in for episode 9 of Lovecraft Country as a first assistant director, a crucial managerial role that requires overseeing shots and staff for months. She and Mr. Majors had only glancing interactions at first, she said, but as they were wrapping up production after a long day, Mr. Majors approached her, saying, to her surprise, that they needed to talk. As other cast and crew left, he indicated they should go to the set's cramped faux bathroom, where he stood in front of her. So they go to the bathroom. So they're on the set's fake bathroom. I just remember him sizing me up and down. So the intent's on his face? Is that what we're going to say? Miss Polini said in an interview, "He's a big guy and I'm 5'3". He told her sternly that things weren't working. He says, "You're not welcome here," Miss Polini said, crying as she recalled the intensity of his dressing down. She was unsure that what she had done wrong and felt trapped. "I'm thinking, how am I going to get out of this situation?" she said. "I kind of cowered. I was scared." Eventually, she said, she placated Mr. Majors, saying she would try to do better, and he left. Miss Polini immediately told 2 colleagues what happened. In an interview with The Times, one of them said that in all their years in the industry, he had never seen her shaken up like that. They encouraged her to report the encounter to her producer, but she resisted until she learned of other women who also had disturbing experiences. Lisa Zugschwert, a veteran assistant director who was on Lovecraft from the start, said she had a negative experience with Mr. Majors early on when he got angry over a schedule change that she was relaying. She tried to avoid him after that. But after a sexual harassment training on set, Mr. Majors approached her while she was standing with another female crew member and got really up in my face, she recalled. He made a derogatory racial remark about her looks, and Miss Swigersholt, a woman of color. Said Miss Swigersholt, a woman of color. Ms. Z was shocked, less by the disparagement than by the way he crossed physical and professional boundaries, she said, especially as she listened to the harassment seminar. They talked about hostile work environment, she said. In the days that followed, she worried about what else Mr. Majors might do. She left the show after a few episodes. Ms. Chaudhry said Mr. Majors had not made a derogatory racial comment about anyone. Multiple female crew members said that these sorts of incidents made it difficult for them to do their jobs. These sorts of incidents. We have 2, though. One where someone just says they're scared because someone said one thing to them. But can we reread this paragraph? This is the whole ordeal around them talking on the set. I just remember him sizing me up and down. Subjective. Miss Polini said in an interview, "He's a big guy and I'm 5'3". He told her sternly that things weren't working. He says, "You're not welcome here." Miss Polini said, crying as she recalled the intensity of his dressing down. She was unsure what she had done wrong and felt trapped. I'm thinking, how am I going to get out of this situation? I kind of cowered. I was scared. So she's just, all of this is just her being scared because she felt like she was being sized up and down. And I'm not saying you don't have the right to feel scared by whatever scares you, but I don't really get how this is an incident. Personally. They could be skipping details in this article, maybe. Why they would skip details that were more confirming, I don't know. But anyway, so we have these multiple incidents or whatever that make it hard for people to work with him. So, hard to do their jobs. Miss Polini and we're getting information that one was there for one episode, the other left after a few episodes. We're not hearing that they were fired, though. We're not hearing that they actually reported yet. Maybe we'll get to it. Let me keep going. Miss Polini and Ms. Z, along with a third female crew member, a production assistant, eventually complained to HBO, and the network advised him to apologize. So, do we have the network making a statement? He did so gruffly, Miss Polini said, saying it was a misunderstanding. So Miss Polini gets an apology, she says, and he says it was a misunderstanding. But things did not improve afterward, she said. So HBO doesn't comment. Ms. Chaudhry said that Mr. Majors, if one of them's complaining about harassment, because this person said straight up discrimination, a harassment, she was bothered by a specific racially derogatory statement. So this is a problem for HBO if that's true. Ms. Chaudhry said that Mr. Majors had never been told that anyone objected to his behavior. So he's still maintaining that he wasn't told anything, any objection to his behavior. Where's HBO? Miss Duncan and Miss Hooper's relationships with Mr. Majors briefly overlapped, though neither initially realized it. When Miss Hooper and Mr. Majors began dating, she said that he quickly expressed deep love for her, but also became controlling, dictating where she could go, who she could socialize with, and how she could behave. She was not allowed to speak to anyone about their relationship, isolating her from a support system. Hey, this sounds like familiar word choices, according to the pretrial statement. She became a shadow of herself. That sounds familiar, too, a Yale classmate said. It sounds like what Ben Toddy said. Or I think, didn't Grace Jabari say that? That's a familiar statement from the trial, though, from some testimony. Miss Chaudhry described Mr. Majors as young and insecure. At the time of his relationship with Miss Hooper, looking back, he is embarrassed by some of his jealous behavior, she said. Miss Hooper got pregnant a few months into the relationship. When she told Mr. Majors that she had scheduled an abortion... This is the actor, right? Hold on. They're both actors. Duncan and Hooper were both actors. So. Right? Did they say that earlier? Acting? Actress? Yeah, so Miss Hooper, actress. All right, so where were we? She became a shadow. Okay, so Miss Hooper, who's an aspiring actress, got pregnant a few months into the relationship. When she told Mr. Majors that she had scheduled an abortion in 2 weeks, he insisted that she do it sooner, she said in the statement. Mr. Majors dropped her off at the clinic, where he was advised that Miss Hooper would need an escort home, she said. But when she called him afterward to pick her up, he said he was heading to a rehearsal. Because she believed that Mr. Majors wouldn't tolerate her discussing the situation with anyone, the statement says, she couldn't call a friend. She feigned an escort and walked herself home. I felt trapped and alone, she said later in an interview with The Times. Miss Chaudhry said that because both Mr. Majors and Miss Hooper were in the same show, they agreed they could not both miss the rehearsal, and that she would find her way home after the procedure. Miss Hooper said they were not in the same show at the time. Interesting. So, that's actually really interesting, and I'd be... If you actually want to show me that, I'd say all right. That deeply sad event is still a painful memory for Mr. Majors, Miss Chaudhry said. In 2015, when Miss Hooper confronted Mr. Majors with evidence that he was having an affair, he threatened to kill himself, her statement says. A year later, after they split up, and Mr. Majors learned that Miss Hooper had a brief relationship with someone he knew, he phoned her and berated her, her statement says, calling her a whore and saying, "I hope you die, kill yourself, and I'm going to rip you out of my heart the way they ripped our baby out of you." But it's over the phone, right? Not in a text, of course. Miss Chaudhry described it as a mutually intense conversation. Mr. Majors regrets saying hurtful things in that moment, but does not recall the specific things he said, she said. Miss Hooper wrote about the incident in her journal, which was reviewed by the Times. The lengthy phone call caused residual trauma and suicidal ideation, she said in a statement to the prosecutors. A Molyneux submission, like the statements by Miss Hooper and Miss Duncan, is a contentious legal tool. Prosecutors successfully use such testimony in the convictions of Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein, but it can help open the door to an appeal of a guilty verdict. At a pretrial hearing, Mr. Majors' defense argued that the submission would be prejudicial to their client, and the judge agreed. The actors' lawyers are seeking to keep the filing with the women's statements sealed permanently. To Miss Duncan, secrecy is tantamount to shame. Coming forward, she said, allowed her and others in the same situation to find support and recovery. I believe in redemption, she said, but not without accountability. So, there we go. That's the New York Times. Let's check up on you guys over here. Oh, we've got a lot. So let's see. And then I agree. There's a few people that express sentiments of being so over this. Need to beat is one of them. I'm not understanding why they're determined to destroy this man. What did he do that was so terrible? I mean, there have been mean people in my life, but this is wild. Let's see. Earl says, I'm guessing this is all part of the unverified and unauthenticated info that Majors wanted to seal. Yeah, and there's stuff in here that should have verification. Oh, HBO doesn't give a comment, but we don't have any text messages. No one's provided any. The one girl said it's well documented. Well, where is it? They're doing everything to make sure this man's career can never bounce back. If this was true about his controversial behavior on set with 20 other people on set, you think they wouldn't say shit. And then to force release due to public safety. Bullshit. And then let's see. Maybe that's why HBO canceled Lovecraft. Lovecraft Country reportedly was a toxic set. And then, let's see. This is only coming out now because the prosecution is likely to lose these motions, so they're now grasping at straws. I mean, technically, the way I see it, they're relying on the statements in this, although it seems like they're having some conversations in an interview with some of the people discussed. But at the same time, they're referencing in a statement. This was said in a statement. So, New York Times has some of this evidence, at least. And then Iron Kitsune says that, speaking about Lovecraft Country, it was canceled because the writer or creator, can't remember the title, tried going to another competitor and HBO didn't like that and axed it. And then Let Love Reign says, where's the proof of these claims, for one? 2, how didn't any of this come out before he started working with Marvel? Total BS. And then, did they talk to Journey? Is Journey, his daughter's mom? Let's see, this one time at drama camp. And then Miss Lady suggests that he could be bipolar and doesn't know it. And yeah, so they're all students, acting students in the drama genre. And then he knows he has issues, that's why he's in therapy. Need to beat it, all of this is hearsay. Hey, Denise Oates. And then this screams Mr. Bragg's a judge trying to save face. Because it's like, where did these statements that are still supposed to be sealed, how did they get into the hands of New York Times? And it seems like the New York Times, it's being written a little muddy, right? Like, yeah, we are interviewing them. So, I don't know, maybe it's possible each of these girls decided they had a copy of the statement that they gave, and they gave that statement to the New York Times, but they said they obtained this before trial. And we only have this writer here. She's been looking into this for about 4 months, more than 4 months. If she spoke to the people first, the girls first, she could have written this article earlier. It seems like the girls maybe want to speak to the New York Times now. Maybe they didn't speak to her like this week, right? She's probably been preparing this article. But still, they probably didn't, I'm thinking they didn't speak to the New York Times personally in December or before December. So how did they obtain these statements from Tripp if they were sealed as well? DA office? Again, Jonathan really needs to let his current significant other find out about his side pieces, or just flat out say, I don't want a commitment. I don't know, some of these details, it's like suggesting, on one hand, you want to be like, oh, well, the Miss Majors thing was another issue from someone else, so it must be something that he does. But at the same time, one, I don't think it's weird for couples to miss and mister each other and make pet names and whatever. But also, if you hear someone say it, you could adopt that and all of a sudden say that, yeah, he did that to me too. I mean, see, everything else she's saying is also true. Saying someone did something like that also doesn't mean anything abusive happened. Miss Lady says some of these articles say overlapping relationships. I don't want to hear from anyone who's got an axe to grind for being cheated on. Yeah, that's what's weird, because if we go back to, and it wasn't the one. It was I'm thinking of Emma Duncan, right? She's the one that was engaged to him. They dated for like a couple years. The way she worded her story, where is it? Actually, two of the things. We're getting this language. They have an argument and he picks her up and slams her body into their mailbox. Because that's coming from a statement from the prosecution. This all seems like it's written the same way that they wanted to write that opening statement about the surveillance video with Jabari, where she's not getting thrown into the side of the car and slammed against the side of the car multiple times like they iterated. And then the quote I was looking for is the one where she's like, I tried to leave, but then I tried to leave because he was abusive, but then I found out he was cheating. And it was like one of those things where it's like, oh, that makes sense. That's the math there. I don't know where it is. Well, I won't keep looking, but the point is for me is it was like the issue, it seems to have slipped out even in this little article that, oh, there was another woman, and that's when she finally leaves shortly after. And then Michael Sanchez, I don't know. I guess technically it should always be consensual. Like, if we're gonna, it should always be clearly consented to. And then he's a Virgo. This is how they are. Some of this sounds very repetitive of Grace's. They are very moody. This is interesting. The DA needs a gag order. It seemed like there kind of was one that went both ways around October. Earl says the DA needs to be fired. Let's see. And then it definitely feels like they're making up whatever to make it sound convincing because they knew they couldn't get him with intentional assault. Let's see. Yeah, and the engaged, so you know what, but you get what I'm saying? Like, you're engaged, but you have all these problems, and then you don't want to leave, but then you mention another woman, and then you want to leave, which, going to that theory, sometimes there's this theory that sometimes you have to let someone find you cheating, otherwise they won't let you go. You have to make them decide on their own to walk away from you. Because when you try to leave on your own, they don't want you to leave. And to me, that seems like what Grace Jabari did based on her own testimony. That he would try to separate from her, and he would try to leave her. And then she would jumble up in the testimony and be like, well, I don't know, we didn't speak for a couple days, I guess. And then finally, he answered me. And then they'd get back together somehow. So whenever, or I was chasing him around, I was following him around the house, up and down the stairs, when he told me to break up and wanted me to pack up my stuff and go. Like, sometimes people will stick to you like this, and you have to do something to make them leave. So if he's going to cheat, he's going to cheat. But if cheating would also help him make someone finally stop, sometimes things just go that way. And that's not justifiable. But doesn't mean he's an abuser. Doesn't mean he committed assault. And then, hey, Perspective Pat, Miss Perspective Pat, all this hearsay, it's turning slanderous and false light leaning. This is what the DA was speaking to regarding the unsealing sealed information. And I mean, that's another reason people might not want to name themselves, right? We talk about anonymity can protect someone who has who rightfully might be afraid of consequences that they don't deserve. But at the same time, if you come out and put your name to something and put a statement to it, you could face litigation if you're knowingly and intentionally saying something that isn't true. And then our beat goes, so yeah, if they had all of this, why wouldn't the judge allow it to be inserted? Why would they come out right after the motions? Then Shanice says the math ain't mathing. And then Earl, I feel skeptical about the 4-year engagement. Yes, there was a male who made accusations too. Yes, that's why I think it was weird that they frame it that way. And it'd be one thing if you just don't know and maybe you're saying that someone else is telling you this, but that wasn't a quote from somebody. That was just a generalization written by the author. And this author says she spent more than 4 months interviewing people across the country who knew or worked with Jonathan Majors. So presumably you interviewed multiple people. Unless you're only asking women. Maybe do we have a mention in here of her interviewing a male that worked with him? I think the only mention we had was the colleague of the one actress who wasn't on set. He worked with her on other things. Polini's friend. So, and then Khalil says, so the prosecutor sent this information to news outlets so they could find these people on their own. Well, don't forget, there's also Cheyenne Roundtree, Rolling Stone, this Army Hammer accuser named Effie that she came out and bragged on Twitter. Blabette screenshotted it. We're part of this online community. We work with women that are, when there's sexual assault claims or vicious abuse claims against a celebrity, they have a community. And this one person that's a part of it, or says she's a part of it, says they talk to each other, and she personally brought the information she gathered to Cheyenne Roundtree from Rolling Stone. Her name is Effie. She's accused Army Hammer of something. I don't know that story. But that's the paper trail, at least, that got to Cheyenne Roundtree, according to Effie. So, prosecutors could have sent this information on one hand, but on the other hand, prosecution could have gotten this information crowdsourced from anonymous people on the internet. And the prosecution is so pathetic. Instead of chasing real criminals, they're doing this. They sound scorned just like Jabroni. Yep, that's why. Yeah, I think, so your next one says that part to Earl. I think you're talking about this part probably. Is defamation of character still a chargeable offense? I don't know. But where would you bring this to? I mean, maybe in the jurisdiction that one of these people lives? Because if not, you'd have to bring it against, if you want to bring it collectively, you'd probably want to bring it against the New York Times, which, I mean, they've lost a defamation suit before. And then Nita Bita. It was like Taylor Lorenz and all of them, I think. I think she lost one. I could be getting my stories crossed. Don't take my word on that. And let's get Pam up in here. Hey, Pam.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Okay, let me make sure I'm going to have that. Can everybody hear Pam kind of the same volume as me? Pam, can you say hi again?
Let me get this. This mic is been giving me fits. Can you hear me?
Let's
How
see.
do I sound in the chat? Hello, everyone.
Okay, because I know last time at first they said you were a little quiet, and then we adjusted you and you were good. All right, so Fahima might be on a delay. So let's see, because they're like 10 seconds behind. Still low.
Okay.
I've got you all the way up on StreamYard, Pam.
How's that?
You sound louder to me.
Okay, I turned it up. I turned up my,
Okay, let's do that.
I keep telling y'all I need that guy, that young man who did the editing and stuff like that, the editing and audio of that stuff from the trial.
The DEA.
I need him so he can come and run this program for me. How's everybody doing? Where are we at? I come from
So we just finished reading the New York Times article. Did you get a chance to read that?
I did.
Okay, so I'm going through some of the commentary on it. I think the comments that I'm getting to we're getting past, it was someone he was engaged to, he dated for 4 years, and, her gripe seems to be, I tried to leave him multiple times because he was abusive, but then really she slips, and the real reason she leaves is because there's another woman. So, and then let's see. It sounds like they told these people what Disgrace said, and they all said, yeah, that happened to me too, because we have that shoving language, the isolation. Nita Beatus is my thing is not one person he's ever been in a movie with has spoke against him. And then hey, Raymar's just joining in. Lil C says, are both new accusers pressing charges? Why are we hearing this? Yeah, why are we hearing this now? No, they're not pressing charges. At least not at this time. We'll see. I guess that could change.
Is it one? Aren't some of their somebody's was saying that they dated when they were at Yale, correct?
Yeah.
So were they in New York when they dated, or was it over there in Yale?
I mean, that's right around the way, right? Isn't that in Connecticut? Is Yale in Connecticut? Right around the tri-state area.
And had the district attorney of New York wouldn't have any jurisdiction for that. Number one. One of them I read that was 2023. And also, again, if you followed me and you followed me, it is pattern. Once a motion comes out, there are stunts and shows, and then there is a disparaging article. Now you think about this starting from April coming to that, it always happened. So I don't know. It just sounds like our Mr. Jonathan was out here being Mr. Lover Lover. Call me Mr. Yeah, he was out here being Mr. Lover Lover, but he just don't have the bandwidth for that. But one of the things that I saw in this article that, again, y'all, I don't know why it's coming on my spirit like this, but why is this S word keep coming up?
And it's crazy because they got these statements. They might have gotten these statements before that was dropped. I mean, because when did Grace make her second statement? That was May, a May hearing? Was it an April hearing?
It's the May hearing.
So May, we no longer have a strangulation charge on the record. They have that hearing. We have her new statement, the new complaint with her language. So if they got these statements before that.
Well, that's what if you scroll back up to the lady that wrote the article, she says she's been working on this case. What is
4
it?
months? More than 4 months.
So more than 4 months. So apparently, like I said, you can't let me tell it. The district attorney of New York had a big old burn book on Jonathan Majors, and they've got it, and they figured, oh, well, if you all want this information, you have to get at least one or two of them to say their names, and they say their names. So now this is a whole end around keeping that information silent. Or
they could have been waiting for some civil suit opportunity, because now there's technically there's a conviction against him.
And possibly, but let us all be realistic. I am quite sure we understood and knew that there was a $20 million contract while he was with Marvel, because he was going to get some stuff on the back end. That is over. What money are you realistically going to get?
Something more than what they've got, probably.
I mean, realistically,
he probably still has a net worth that's probably still more than theirs, even if he's been a terrible spender over the last year, paying for his defense.
Did I read correctly where one of them said that they were on Lovecraft Country?
Yeah. One of them was in one episode. Well, no, not the girls that dated.
Well, who
there
was
were
in
two
Lovecraft?
Other people from Lovecraft. Let me get their names. Polini and Z with a long name. Should we pull them up? We can pull them up.
Yeah. Because the reason why I asked, because I remember some buzz about this a while back, and it was my understanding that the incidents that were going on Lovecraft Country had to do everything with the showrunner and some attitudes and things like that with the showrunner. So this is interesting that now all of a sudden this is coming up with him. So I mean, do we need to talk to Misha Green?
Well, because it almost so this can't be the same person. Why is her IMDb like nothing? Like, she's got credits, don't get me wrong, but Well, let's go to the images tab, but I feel like it might just be random people. These look like all different Jessica Pellinis.
And so now all of this, it's always, like I said, it's where there is emotion, you all need to be prepared for stunts and shows. And then stunts and shows happen, and then something else happens. But this was let me pull up my New
Maybe
York
I'm not
Times.
being a good Googler, but like, who is she?
New York Times always tries to make me pay, so I have to screenshot the article so quickly. Excuse me, y'all.
Maybe I can, because I have it. Maybe I can. If you want to private chat me your email, I can email you a gift article and you can read it without it.
Okay.
But yeah, guys, I'm trying to Google Jessica Pellini and I'm not finding that. So it's just coming up with other Lovecraft Country stuff.
Was she a production assistant, or was she an actress?
Go back to it. Oh, I just clicked something on New York Times. I don't know where it's putting me. It's giving me like some paid ad. Let me out of here, New York Times.
What was her name again? Jessica?
Yeah, Pellini, a veteran with more than a decade in the TV industry, Boardwalk Empire. Oh, let me search for Boardwalk Empire then. She came in for episode 9 of Lovecraft Country as first assistant director.
That's what I get. Second unit director or assistant director. She was a first assistant on Lovecraft Country.
I mean, she looks kind of under the radar.
Oh, you see a picture? I don't see a picture.
No, I mean, I couldn't find one. Let me send you this invite. That way you can have the full article.
I appreciate that.
Let me do it in another window. Oh, here. Let me get a link after I did it. There you go. You should be able to pull it up now. All right. So let me see what the chat is saying. You guys are probably looking at Jessica Pellini. Let's see. We've got a lot of comments, you guys. Jessica Pellini. And then I found a Reddit thread from 2021 talking about the toxic work environment.
Why are all these people, 20 people?
I heard about it too. Hey, Khalil, thank you for your super chat. So Khalil says it does sound like he needs help, to be honest, but I'm tired of these negative articles. And so what's the like, what do you do if you need help, right? You need some mental help. You are seeking it, especially. Like, he's not just denying it. We know that he's actively seeking help for it. Can you not be in a relationship ever because you'll constantly have to worry that one day an article like this could come out about you? Because it kind of seems like if you need help, and particularly if you're a man, it's always going to be weaponized against you. And it's almost like if you just keep it quiet and don't admit that you've ever gotten therapy, you'd be better off. Because then no one would be able to say, well, you have mental health issues, so you must have also done this angry thing, because it adds up.
Let me make sure I gave you the right address. I see it. Got it. Thank you, Kat.
Okay, I'm gonna go look tracker. Let's see. I'm not giving airtime to someone coming in here accusing people of bashing these women and using irrelevant comparisons. Yeah, let's not. I mean, I don't know. Did we read through all the transcripts here? We're probably going to hear that we did and we read it. But if you read those transcripts and don't see inconsistencies about what was claimed to be the assault, I'm thinking you're just going to be disingenuous. And then, yeah, so Jonathan acknowledges he wasn't a great boyfriend in the past. All right, guys. So now that we're kind of caught up there, you guys can still keep commenting. Pam, did you see? Do you want to go to the Cut article or the Rolling Stone? Rolling Stone's going to kind of be the same thing. It's just going to be coming from Cheyenne Roundtree's perspective.
Right. We can
So
do
let's
that.
do that one then. So it's just a Yahoo syndicate, but it's the same article. It was published like 30 minutes after, and it's Cheyenne and Althea writing it. So 2 women have come forward to accuse, and let's look at the headline here because it says Jonathan Majors, 2 more women come forward to accuse actor of abuse, but it's 2 women that already came forward. They're just actually named now.
Right.
2 women have come forward to accuse Jonathan Majors of abuse 2 months after the Marvel star was convicted of recklessly assaulting his ex-girlfriend, Grace Jabari. The women, Emma Duncan and Maura Hooper, spoke to the New York Times and alleged Mr. Majors was physically and or emotionally abusive during their overlapping relationships with the actor. Duncan claims that on multiple occasions, Majors was physically violent with her. During one alleged fight in July 2016, Majors allegedly choked Duncan, threw her body across the room, and threatened he was going to make sure you can't have children. Majors denied the accusations. Hooper, and is that a different quote, that part? I think this is a different quote. Hooper, who dated Majors from 2013 to 2015 after meeting at Yale's prestigious drama school, claimed Majors was deeply controlling and that she was not allowed to speak to anyone about their relationship. Majors' attorney Priya Chaudhry said Majors was young and insecure during that time period and is embarrassed by some of his jealous behavior, which is consistent with what he said in the GMA interview.
Right.
Let me pull that down. These women's accounts were first referenced to in Rolling Stone's investigation from June, so they're acknowledging that these are not more women that come forward. So maybe they're going to tell us 2 other people besides these 2. So these women's accounts were first referred to in Rolling Stone's investigation from June, where more than a dozen sources who were friends with the women or were present during their relationship independently corroborated details of the alleged abuse. At the time, Duncan and Hooper declined to comment for the original article, with one of the women, through a spokesperson, citing fear of retribution. And I remember that line from that article. It was pervasively known that he was a good actor and that he would also terrorize the people that he had dated. One of the dozen sources told Rolling Stone. Majors was convicted in December for reckless assault in the 3rd degree and a harassment violation stemming from his March 2023 arrest, where he allegedly attacked Jabari after she saw him receive a romantic text. Oh, so we just leave the part where the phone was grabbed for. Can we look at the sentence? Where he allegedly attacked Jabari after she saw him receive a romantic text from another woman. So she sees something and he just attacks her. That's what's being implied here, despite Jabari's own testimony. He was acquitted. That's.
It doesn't even. There was a precipitating action. She grabbed at his phone. He just didn't. This is why I'm looking at all of this and I'm like, those texts didn't help him out with the "you're a monster, I'm a monster," because this is how they're portraying him. Oh, he's such a monster. He's such a monster. So I see
but what
that.
is it when we're going to talk about all his relationships are toxic? He has to be the problem. Okay, well, Grace Jabari's toxic because she's the one that was following him in and out of the house, up and down the stairs, up and down the stairs, up and down the stairs, according to her own testimony.
I think
Whenever there was a story where he wanted space or separation, she bombarded him, according to her own testimony. That's toxic and that's problematic. So these women, okay, Majors was first. We're here. He was acquitted of the 2 more serious charges, intentional assault and aggravated harassment. The 34-year-old sentencing was scheduled for Tuesday, but his attorney filed last-minute motions to overturn the verdict, causing sentencing to be pushed back until April 8th. Although Majors faces up to a year in jail, it's unlikely he'll serve any time behind bars. New York Times obtained Melena evidence, previous history of alleged bad acts related to the case, that contained the women's testimonies to prosecutors. Chaudhry recently filed a motion to keep the documents permanently under seal. She claimed the unproven allegations would cause significant concrete harm because the media has already demonstrated that it has a near insatiable appetite for salacious gossip concerning Mr. Majors. A third woman who was considering speaking with the DA came forward to Rolling Stone as part of the June investigation, but pulled out before publication. Recently speaking with The Cut, who gave her the pseudonym Anna, the woman said she was also in an abusive relationship with Majors. Anna claimed she backed out of Rolling Stone's June article because she received a threatening letter allegedly sent by a legal assistant who claimed she was being investigated by a law firm and was part of an ongoing criminal investigation. Well, what's threatening there? We need more than that, because there's nothing threatening about this part. Let's see if there's worse. The email contained a phone number, which the woman traced back through a Google search to the law firm of Chaudhry, Major's lawyer. So they're not trying to... This sentence is making it look like they're trying to be anonymous and slick, but it seems like they just put the contact number, a publicly available contact number, in the email. This is framing. It felt like a threat, Anna told The Cut. I pulled back 100% from participating and supporting Grace, speaking to the DA, communicating with journalists, all of it. Chaudhry denied to The Cut that her firm was behind the mysterious email and said she would file a criminal complaint against the sender. The women's stories mirror the testimony that Jabari gave during the trial. The professional dancer and movement coach said the two met on the set of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in summer 2021. She described the early days as a whirlwind, with Mr. Majors professing his love early on and writing her poetry. However, things soured by that December. She claimed Majors would allegedly fly into a rage, attempt to control her behavior, throw glass objects around her, and routinely threaten to commit suicide in the aftermath of such incidents. Jabari testified that she felt responsible for Majors' emotions and grew increasingly isolated from her friends and family because she felt like she was lying by hiding aspects of her relationship from them. Well, we saw she wasn't isolated. Hooper claims she became pregnant a few months into their relationship and made an abortion appointment for 2 weeks later, which Mr. Majors allegedly wanted scheduled sooner. Although Majors knew Hooper needed an escort home, Hooper claimed that Majors attended a rehearsal instead of picking her up. She ended up walking home. In 2016, Hooper claimed Majors became angry with her for dating someone he knew. I'm going to rip you out of my heart the way they ripped our baby out of you, he allegedly told Hooper. An attorney for Majors acknowledged it was a mutually intense conversation, and Majors regrets saying hurtful things in that moment, but does not recall the specific things he said. Duncan said she began her relationship with Majors after meeting at a summer acting program in Chautauqua. You had something, Pam?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's might be sorry.
And they were engaged from 2015 to 2019. Although the relationship started out affectionate with grand romantic gestures, Duncan claimed that by July 2016, Majors had threatened to strangle and kill her during an argument. Majors' attorney claimed he never threatened her. Part of Melena evidence, some of which was referred to in prosecutors' filing from October, mentioned a police report regarding a September 2022 incident in London that resulted in Jabari receiving medical care. Now, there's been a lack of clarity from the outlets about this incident and who was actually involved in it. In November, London's Metropolitan Police confirmed that there was an ongoing investigation into the incident that included allegations of physical assaults. The women's claims fly in the face of Majors' recent ABC News interview, where Majors spoke publicly for the first time about the case and denied that he was ever abusive in any relationship. Majors claimed that although he had witnessed domestic abuse, he never participated in it. I've been smacked at before, but never exercised it, Majors said. Those relationships went back to when I was 21, 22 years old, and I just think, was I a jerk? Was I a mean guy? Yeah, knowing what I know now, like, severe depression, childhood trauma, I've had very few relationships, so I can gather what situations we're talking about. Yeah, I was not the best boyfriend at the time, but I never hit a woman. My hands have never struck a woman, ever. And then, Majors' career had a tremendous freefall. A year ago, he was garnering early Oscar buzz for playing a lonely bodybuilder with violent fantasies in magazine Dreams. and had starring roles in Creed 3 and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But in the wake of his arrest, his management company and publicist dropped him. All future projects were shelved, and Marvel dealt the final blow when the studio announced Majors would not be returning to the role of Kang the Conqueror, which the franchise's next 2 films were centered on. So, that's the end of the Rolling Stone article there. And then let's see what you guys are saying here. What are your thoughts, Pam? That was mostly the same.
It sounded basically the same. I'm curious about this email that you got from the because I mean, if you had that and you sent that to did you send it to the DA that you were talking with the DA? Why didn't the DA assist you in pressing charges if you felt threatened?
I don't know, but reading that language there, that doesn't seem unusual. We're writing to you because we're part of an ongoing, like, we're investigating a criminal matter, and we want to ask you a few questions. Like,
Right.
the worst thing about that is just her saying she felt scared. Where was that language?
Yeah, that you know that and
And then
the S word keeps coming up over and over and over again. The S word keeps coming up. So I'm just curious if what's really going on up there in New York in this S word.
I'm not sure.
No, they're not.
I mean, I was gonna say, like, I was gonna guess by the names. Sounded white, personally. But yeah, you guys know his history more. Let's see.
Yeah.
So they are skirting around defamation just enough to make the public demand something, but not enough to be actual evidence of anything.
Because most of us, if you think about the relationships you've had and the breakups that you've had and stuff like that, I mean, I can categorize myself as being toxic for the stuff that has come out of my mouth and I've said about a partner that I had, being angry or something like that. But this, like I said, there's always emotion, then there's stunts and shows, and then there's an article, and then we go through this same rigmarole. I figured something because I don't know if I was talking to you or Danny or somebody else saying. I said, "Watch, they did not."
They're gonna come out and do something now.
Yeah, I said they did not go through with the sentencing. They're coming up with something. I said something else is going to come out. Watch and see. It's going to have something else is going to come out because again, this is it's patterned with the stunts and shows. Like I said, I'm quite interested into hearing. I don't really want to hear all of this stuff, but I'm taking it from the standpoint how interesting you the way you went around the Molyneux, how you the end game to go around, because the only way that you're going to be able to get out and go around that is if the people came out and said something, the people that talked to the DA, and that's what's inevitably happened.
Yep.
And I see that the Rolling Stones, they realized that people were not legitimizing what they were, and I'm just curious. And this is just a me thing. I'm just always curious about how these things come about. Did they feed this story to the New York Times or feed the story to the New York Times person 3 or 4 months ago? Because people would more or less legitimize the New York Times versus the Rolling Stone, since the Rolling Stone has had some issues and problems with their reporting and the accuracy of their reporting.
Well, that's the other thing too. It's one thing. It's a bit better to me now that there are 2 names, but now that's coming through the New York Times after a longer investigation. So I don't know. I still feel like we have this whole thing with Effie and this community, this woman Effie who says she went and found people to crowdsource accusations, not just in the Jonathan Majors case, but in other cases. And she's someone who's been pointed out as being potentially a false accuser of Armie Hammer. But she says she gathered this conversation from this community that she's a part of and brought it directly to Cheyenne Roundtree. So that's where, like, a lot of this to me seems like it's crowdsourced and there's really no verification. It's just hearsay.
Wait a minute. Am I hearing you correctly? Are you telling me there's a community of women that when someone is accused of something within this community of women, they are crowdsourcing allegations, complaints in
Yep. That's what I'm saying. Let's see if I can find the screenshots.
That's diabolical. There is a community of, oh my God, that's real diabolical. I guess because I wouldn't say it. So you're sourcing for people to have allegations. Because again, like I was talking about with this Lovecraft Country thing, it was my understanding because I saw an interview, I read an interview with Journey Smollett, was it Journey Smollett? And she was
I
talking
never know how
about,
to pronounce that name, but I know who you're referring to.
I remember when they were talking about Lovecraft Country, she was saying that a lot of the stuff was that, she was bumping heads with the showrunner. A lot of the people were bumping heads with the showrunner, who was Misha Green, but no one said anything about bumping heads with Jonathan Majors or anything like that. We didn't hear anything of that. That's why I was saying I can't say it happened or I can't say it didn't happen. What I'm
Oh
saying
yes.
is that
Let's say
several.
so. Everyone in the chat, do you guys remember if it was anyone specific or was it just a toxic set? Let's see what the chat says. We haven't exactly. Have a good night. I forget. Everyone's in like different time zones. Sometimes I'm like stuck.
That's
I'm
always
like, oh, it's 11 o'clock for everyone. And yeah, so it was just like a vague one of those like that set is so toxic to be on.
Well, it wasn't even that. It wasn't. It was. There was a specific incident, from what I understand. There was a specific incident, a specific time.
Oh, so Wonder Woman here. See, I didn't even know anything. I haven't even seen the show, so I don't know anything that happened surrounding it.
Yeah,
Is Misha an act on this set? Is that like an actual actress
that
or
wrote the show. She was the
okay?
showrunner. She wrote and she produced and all that other stuff. So that's what I understood. But no one said that it was him being toxic. Most of the stuff that they were saying, it was about her and her pushing and getting people to do the stuff that she wanted. And that's what I remember. An article that I read with Journey Smollett. This was years ago. So I don't know. Like I said, no one mentioned him, and he's been on several different sets. And like I said, you can't have all. There's always sometimes that you may or may not have an issue or blow up. And I'm not excusing any bad behavior. Don't mishear me. That has boggled my mind for the night. I did not know that there are people literally crowd surfing for because, man, I wonder what the stuff was happening, because I remember a lot of it had to do with sets and time crunches and money and making sure you allot. But I didn't, you heard about it, but no one made it seem like the way they're making it seem like it was now. I guess, and if you're crowd surfing, I guess you hear something about a bad set and then you're able to put
Well,
yourself.
this is the screenshots from the Army Hammer accuser. So this is 11/21/23. Blabette grabbed these. They're deleted now. Everyone knew Majors has multiple victims. It's an open secret. I heard about it months before it hit the press. People who know him did an entire article about it. Not sure why you're accusing the DA of leaking that info. It definitely wasn't the DA's office, LOL. I'm not giving it. Wait, I don't know if it went this way. I was the person who got them to talk to Cheyenne and do that big Rolling Stone article. There's a survivors community of women who have public abuse cases. A lot of us know each other and refer each other to journalists, lawyers, etc. I'm not giving. I think Blabette had asked who, like who are you talking about? I'm not giving you that information. It's weird that you would even ask that. The big Rolling Stone article where a bunch of people went on record about him. The article is about how many people knew for how many years that he abuses his girlfriends. So it's weird if you see that as not against him. It's also weird that you keep asking who the sources are. Why do you care anyway? It doesn't concern you. And then there was some other stuff talking about Cheyenne Roundtree, and Efrosina is Effie, the chick we just looked at. So there's just some stuff. I don't know much more beyond that about this, but
Yeah, because I know
yeah.
that Cheyenne has some questionable things even across the pond. So I'm curious. I don't know. I'm just gonna say I don't know. I just, like I said, all I'm saying is this is always patterned. But like I said, it's curious now because I don't know if you all were on one of my shows, because I was always like, they had this law in New York, and I didn't know it's sunsetted around Thanksgiving. That's the thing that Diddy and Jamie Foxx got caught up under. Oh, what was the name of
Oh, the
that
Adult
one?
Survivors Act.
Right. So would they have come up under that? Could they have used or sued and come up under that?
Might be too late to do it there, but if they weren't in New York, if it didn't happen in New York,
Okay.
the jurisdiction would have been a different issue. Yeah, so Let Love Rain just quoted that whole part from that tweet. It's also weird that you keep asking who the sources are. Why do you care? It doesn't concern you. It concerns those who care about, sourcing the information. So right, 4 girlfriends, 1 mother of his child, 1 ex-fiance, 1 side chick, and 1 crazy white girl that ran after him. And then there was this article from The Cut, which I saw. I didn't realize that the Rolling Stone article referenced it. It was published exactly at 8 a.m. It's a bit lengthy, and it seems to focus mostly on Priya. It's from Angelina Chapin, a features writer for The Cut, who covers gender, crime, and culture. It's titled...
Hold on. NYC's most ruthless defense lawyer?
Yeah, because they're going to go in about how she, represented Paul Haggis and whatever, because he was convicted of rape, so... So yeah, it's going to mostly be about Priya, but a lot also about Jonathan.
Go ahead. I got to listen to this. Let me mute my...
But look what it said. Priya Chaudhry's grilling of Jonathan Major's accusers shocked some watching his assault trial. She doesn't care. So some of these people in the courtroom, that's what this has to be characterized by. One of the first things that greets you upon entering Priya Chaudhry's law firm is a toddler-sized stuffed sloth. We call him our comfort sloth, the defense attorney says, before lifting the plushie off a couch. And by the way, did I mention this was published right at 8 a.m.? So I feel like it was scheduled to go out today, this morning. Wait, is it tagged as power? What is this tag? Yeah, so that's a tag of categories here. So I guess that's the category of what this is about. Let's see. So go ahead and... Oh. Before lifting the plushie off a couch... This is going to be for you, Pam. Before lifting the plushie off a couch and wrapping around my neck tightly enough that for a moment it's hard to breathe. Do we have to start everything with one of these S-word visuals? Go ahead and give him a hug. The sloth and the Star Wars figurines on Chaudhry's desk and the gold peacock printed wallpaper are supposed to help clients relax. The people who come up that elevator are incredibly stressed, she explains. A bomb has gone off in their life, and they're desperate. A few desperate celebrities have come through Chaudhry's door in recent years. The Real Housewives star Jen Shah, the filmmaker Paul Haggis, and most recently, the actor Jonathan Majors. Chaudhry started representing him last March when Majors was charged with assault after allegedly hitting his girlfriend's head and after he was initially charged with the S-word, fracturing her finger in the back of a chauffeured car. At 5 feet tall, Chaudhry cut a striking figure, wearing bright dresses and a gold backpack throughout the 2-week trial. She hammered Grace Jabari, Major's ex, with questions until Jabari became visibly flustered and burst into tears. Some of the times she just got up there and pulled out the police body cam and then ran out before questions were really asked. I guess this person wasn't actually in the courtroom or read the transcripts. Chaudhry betrayed no emotion herself until closing arguments, letting out a sob as she told jurors to end this nightmare for Jonathan Majors. They found the actor guilty of misdemeanor assault and harassment, which carries up to a year of jail time, and acquitted him on 2 other charges. Say what those charges were, because they were more serious. Majors was expected to be sentenced on February 6th, but Chaudhry filed a last-minute motion to throw out the verdict that pushed him... So Vulture did an article on that. That pushed his hearing until April. So The Cut is referencing Vulture here. Are they affiliated? Because they're linking to Victoria's article here. That pushed his hearing until April. In late January, I visited Chaudhry's office to talk about the Majors case and how she's developing a reputation as one of the go-to lawyers for men accused of misconduct. But Jen Shah's like her highest profile client until now, right? Maybe still now. She defended Haggis, the Academy Award-winning Crash filmmaker, in his 2022 civil rape trial. She lost that case, but notched a win in November when a former prosecutor turned criminal justice reform advocate she represented was cleared of rape and sexual abuse charges. And there's that Effie community. I'm telling you, they circled around this case too. They had a group of people go to that courtroom. Chaudhry, wearing a ruby red and gold dress, tells me she was drawn to defense work by the inequality she witnessed growing up. I could do anything, she says, and I chose this when I was a child because I hate bullies. We're sitting in a glass-walled room with Chaudhry's Baby Yoda water bottle on a table in front of us. Her husband, a crisis communications expert named Andrew Burke, is beside her, scribbling on a yellow notepad. When she was 1 year old, Chaudhry's family moved from Delhi to an apartment complex in Cleveland. Seeing how her neighbors, who she describes as mostly poor people of color, were treated by the police later inspired her to become a defense lawyer. I've watched how race matters in this country, how the criminal justice system picked up where slavery left off, she says. I do this job because I hate the government. I've seen prosecutors asking to set a $20 bail for a homeless person, knowing that they don't have $20, and now this person is just going to sit and rot in jail. There are generations of lawyers in her family, all of them men, she points out. Chaudhry studied pre-med as an undergrad before earning a law degree from Northwestern University. She worked for 2 years as a public defender in Seattle, where she learned how to handle sexual assault cases. She moved to New York City and was hired at a boutique firm focused on white-collar crimes, then ran her own practice for 6 years before becoming a partner at Harris, St. Laurent, and Chaudhry. There, she worked on cases involving money laundering, fraud, and violent crimes, and developed a reputation for welcoming controversy. She seemed to take the cases that everyone else was saying. I don't think I can handle that, says Anjula Prasad, a lawyer who worked with her at that firm. Chaudhry's known for intense work ethic and exacting standards. For every 10 minutes of cross-examination, I probably spend 10 hours preparing, she says. No one in that courtroom knows the facts better than I do. Prasad describes Chaudhry's process as going to battle, and says the attorney immerses herself in a case as if method acting. Younger colleagues say she's a brilliant mentor who expects the same level of perfection from others. You do not want to see Priya when she catches a mistake, says Jared Foley, a lawyer who worked with her at Harris, St. Laurent, and Chaudhry. She once spotted a typo in a document he was working on and told him it had to be flawless, given how much we're getting paid. Well, that's nice. You don't really usually hear lawyers encourage billable hours. So he looks back at that now as a valuable lesson. Clients notice every mistake. At the time, it just felt nitpicky, though he knew not to snap back. God help you if you ever try to interrupt her or speak down to her, he says, laughing. She will cut you. So we're going to get threats that we're going to get claims that she's abusive. And she'll do it wearing a peacock printed coat and gold sneakers. Since she can't cosplay as an old white man, Chaudhry tells me, I might as well wear things that are awesome and bold. Even after practicing law for 25 years, she says, I get stopped by security and asked if I'm the interloper. No one ever thinks I'm the lawyer. In 2019, the attorney left to open Chaudhry Law with a focus on criminal cases. One of her first celebrity clients was Jen Shah, the fiery Real Housewives of Salt Lake City star, charged in a telemarketing fraud case. Shah's famously unbothered tagline after her arrest, the only thing I'm guilty of is being shamazing. Chaudhry told the press that her client was innocent right up until Shah struck a plea deal with the prosecutors to spend 6.5 years in prison in 2022. Miss Shah is a good woman who crossed a line, Chaudhry said in a statement at the time. She accepts full responsibility for her actions and deeply apologizes to all who have been harmed. A few months after Shah was sentenced, the attorney asked the judge to release her from the case, saying Shah owes more than $124,000 in legal fees. When I asked Chaudhry if Shah has ponied up yet, she pauses and smiles before saying something off the record that I wish I could publish. As you saw from my filings, she says, she has not. Later that year, Chaudhry worked her first celebrity trial. Movie publicist Haley Breest had sued Paul Haggis in 2017 for sexual assault, alleging that he brought her to his Soho apartment a few years earlier after they met at an event, forced her to perform oral sex, and then raped her. 4 other women would later take the stand to allege Haggis sexually assaulted or harassed them. The director's lawyers wanted someone with experience in criminal sexual assault to do the cross-examination and recruited Chaudhry. This was the attorney's first high-profile Me Too case. She's not shy about her criticisms of the movement. I represent women also. I'm aware that women can lie, and complains that district attorneys are bringing sexual assault charges forward just to score political points. They're saying if a woman says something, evidence be damned, a defendant's rights be damned, and let a jury decide. Her cross-examination of Breest took 3 days. She gave microscopic attention to every detail, dwelling on the size and contents of the tote bag Breest carried the night of the incident, and fixated on where the publicist was standing when Haggis allegedly pushed her onto the bed. Breest's lawyer, Zoe Salzman, tells me she was shocked by one moment in particular. While her client was describing how she tried to squirm away from Haggis, Chaudhry asked, "Can you show us what it looked like?" Breest stood to reenact the moment, but was startled when a photographer snapped her photo. The judge called for a break. I could not believe what I was seeing, Salzman says. It caused her to break down. It was just gut-wrenchingly awful. Chaudhry feels her request was warranted. She asked accusers to act out their testimony all the time and felt Bree's account of the assault wasn't actually possible. So I just said, can you show me? The jury ultimately found Haggis liable and ordered him to pay Breeze $10 million. Chaudhry's cross-examination in the Majors case was similarly tense. The attorney asked Jabari more than a dozen times to admit that, when police first arrived on the scene, she didn't tell them she had been assaulted by Majors. To jog Jabari's memory, Chaudhry played surveillance video footage of the moment when cops found her unconscious in Major's apartment. Jabari cried each time the video played, pleaded not to see it again, and at one point asked to leave the courtroom for a break. But Chaudhry's approach backfired. The next day, the judge ruled that because of this line of questioning, jurors could see previously sealed text messages that might explain why Jabari withheld information from police and doctors. In the exchange, Majors appeared to dissuade Jabari from seeking treatment at a hospital after a previous incident. They will ask you questions, he wrote, and as I don't think you actually protect us, it could lead to an investigation, even if you do lie and they suspect something. One lawyer told The Hollywood Reporter that after the setback, Major's fate was sealed. I don't remember what article that was. Other critics tell me they feel the way Chaudhry treats witnesses on the stand is out of touch. Did you say something, Pam? Oh, you're okay. Salzman thinks her aggressive lawyering is an ineffective strategy with New York's young, progressive jury pool. Honestly, I don't give a shit, Chaudhry says of her haters. The idea I should coddle Jabari, she continues, feels like suggesting I should coddle the woman who accused Emmett Till. Okay, Chaudhry, say it. Huh?
I said, that's what you're hearing. That's why I muted my mic, because I'm sitting in the mic and I'm just breathing. So I'm going to mute my mic when you read so you won't hear my breathing.
No, so Jonathan Majors was not offered a plea. Are we talking about Jonathan Majors here?
No, he was not offered a plea.
Because I know there's other cases that could be relevant here, but if that is Jonathan Majors was not offered a plea. You don't want someone to be polite to the person lying about you, she says. It's a war. It's boxing, not tickling. Chaudhry isn't afraid to take the fight outside the courtroom either. Months before the trial began, the attorney escorted Majors to an NYPD precinct to file an assault complaint against Jabari. Prosecutors later dismissed the charges, and the judge in the Majors case called her brief arrest very unusual. While Chaudhry was filing pretrial documents that claimed Jabari was the aggressor, who slapped and scratched Majors in a booze-fueled, savage rage, journalists were digging into the actor's past. Rolling Stone published an article that alleged he had physically or emotionally abused two other ex-girlfriends, accusations that he denied. The journalists reached out to Majors' legal team for comment and reported they received 6 character witness statements from other women Majors knew or had dated. When the magazine contacted these sources, 4 claimed they hadn't given his permission to send anything. Dustin's. Are they talking about Dustin's permission? A woman I'll call Anna tells me she spoke to Rolling Stone about her relationship. So Anna, this is where we're getting the Rolling Stone reference. A woman I'll call Anna tells me she spoke to Rolling Stone about her relationship with Majors, which she alleges was abusive as part of that same article. But before it was published, she received a strange email that claimed she was being investigated. So wait, Anna's also part of the original Rolling Stone article? Am I reading this right?
Yes.
Did the Rolling Stone article we just read make it seem like Anna didn't talk to them, but was a new person talking to the cut? Or am I just misinterpreting missing information? Hold on.
No, remember in the Rolling Stone article, they made a mention of someone saying that there was a NDA.
Okay, they do say.
Yeah.
But she pulled before... Actually, she pulled everything from Rolling Stone. Where was I over here? But before it was published, she received a strange email. The sender, who identified themselves as a legal assistant and used a Gmail account, left a number for Anna to call. Anna couldn't find the sender on Google, but when she searched the phone number, the publicly listed number for Chaudhry's law firm popped up. She says the email rattled her so much that she told Rolling Stone she could no longer be part of the story. So we don't get any more text there either. We just get the same ongoing criminal investigation quote. So she says the email rattled her so much that she told Rolling Stone she could no longer be part of the story. She also abandoned plans to reach out to the DA's office, which she heard was speaking to other alleged victims. It felt like a threat, Anna said. I pulled back 100% from participating in support of Grace, speaking to the DA, communicating with journalists, all of it. Chaudhry says neither she nor anyone from her firm sent that email. When I read it out loud, her husband interjects, I'd love to see a copy of that email, he says. That's not from us. That's fucking creepy. Okay, so maybe it is creepy. But that's who, you guys said that in the chat. Like, where's the email then? Chaudhry doesn't seem shaken. I think that's like, I hate to use this phrase, but everyone knows the Nigerian prince scam. After I leave her office, she sends a follow-up email asserting that the message is a fraud aiming to damage her firm, then says she plans to file a criminal complaint against whoever sent it. The attorney is still fighting hard to clear Major's name. She helped arrange his recent appearance on Good Morning America in early January, where he teared up while talking about his conviction and his daughter. The actor also doubled down on a recording played during the trial, in which he demands Jabari be more like Curtis Scott King. The next day, Bernice King appeared to respond by tweeting, My mother wasn't a prop. Chaudhry thought his appearance was a success. It gave viewers a look at the Jonathan she knows, the soft-spoken intellectual and poet, who is nothing like the violent characters he portrays on screen. Though Chaudhry acknowledged she's never watched one of Major's movies, I joke that he's Meryl Streep's talent in Muhammad Ali's body and has Edward Scissorhands' soul, she says. I don't think anyone had ever seen him like that. Major's career may be in tatters, but Chaudhry thinks her defense strategy will attract more clients. I get these calls because the rest of the world watches and goes, I want my lawyer going out and saying he's innocent, she says. She fixes her gaze on me. If I were ever falsely accused of a crime, she says, I bet you'd call me. What makes her so sure? She smirks. Because you know I'd fight for you. Fair enough. I do get that impression from Chaudhry. I mean, I think I've called her like a bulldog, because of her height. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because I think we heard that the way she was pressing Grace Jabari in court, what was it, first day of cross or something like that, that she was very assertive with her. But Grace was crying and running out of the courtroom. I don't know if that was day 1 or day 2, but I do remember that.
Yeah, I thought this article was going to be longer, guys, just because you see how much scroll length is down here. But it ends in the middle of the page of the scroll, so I thought we were going to be reading for a while. I would have read it a little slower. But this one didn't say much of anything. This was pretty much a Priya Chaudhry profile. And we don't really get to see who these witnesses are that are really shocked watching this trial. But apparently there has to be a limited number of people because it wasn't televised. So, but Zach...
You remember too, there were so many reporters in there, 18, 19, 20 reporters in there. So they may have been, upset because like after she testified, you remember they left. So the people in the courtroom outside of his people and maybe a few specks of bystanders were reporters, because the place wasn't that big from what Danny says.
Right, like the odds of like 50-50 shot that it was a reporter.
I'm looking in the comments. I'm trying to see, because what was he offered? Okay, so it is my understanding, Jazz, that he was not offered a plea deal. They overed and triple charged him. They did go and talk to the district attorneys because they tried to have the place dismissed, but there was never a plea deal offered. That's my understanding, that there was never a plea deal offered. They were offering, they over and triple charged him, but they never did offer a plea deal, from my understanding.
Yeah, no plea deal. Which is, again, they're not really required to offer one. It's just very out of the norm for procedures of the Manhattan DA. So, and then I had a comment here. Where did I put it? It was from Zach. So Zach says, I love how they completely discredited Grace's arrest in one sentence. They left out that the NYPD found probable cause to charge her based off evidence. So 2 precincts, 2 detectives. They left that out.
They're going to do that because him filing those charges, as far as anyone is concerned, is considered to be Darvo. And,
well,
they can...
I read somewhere too that he actually did go into one of the precincts, but then they said you have to file this in a different precinct because the case is already open there. So he first went to the Chinatown area precinct to file. Him. Then he's away, he's traveling, he's working, or I don't know what he's doing, but he's not in town. And then they find out that, hey, we found probable cause, but it needs to actually go through a detective in the precinct where this case is actually active. Because remember, the case all started, the police get called where the penthouse is. It's a different precinct. So that's when Priya goes in there with the laptop with him on a Zoom call or whatever app that they're using with everything else basically coming over from the other precinct. So he went earlier than it seems like, and then there was a delay in time because that precinct was investigating it, and then said, hey, we want to move forward with this iCard, but we can't because there's already an active case about the same incident. So you have to take it to that precinct. And he wasn't in town at that point. So they leave those details out too, which to me are kind of important because if there's going to be this pushback of, well, why did he wait so long? Fair enough, right? On one hand, there could be many reasons, but we do have some context that he went somewhere sooner than we think he went because he had to do it again. So, and then let's see. Yeah, they're not. So Rosemary says, I've been saying for the longest that they're not just finding Jonathan Majors guilty, but also punishing his attorney. And then can I also point out that they are saying that his behavior towards Grace Jabari is controlling. However, we found out that it is not. Perhaps the people Jonathan Majors dates are a certain personality type. So if you guys caught when Pam was on this channel last time with Danny, I said, Pam started talking about gender and that stuff. And I was like, you would think a certain type of personality would hate someone else that acted the same way. But when it comes to and it's not just women, but certain toxic personalities, they somehow have an affinity for each other. They don't reject each other. They'd rather be allies with each other to substantiate themselves. And that's speaking generally. That's, of course, not asserting that that's absolutely what's happening here. But it's like when there's reality shows about it. There was a show called The X Factor. You get 2 ex-girlfriends, 2 ex-boyfriends, depending on who the other date was, the suitor was. And they put them in a microphone bit in the new person's ear. And they're both just in the ear, like, compiling things to say about the ex to the new person in the ear.
Mm.
It's a group dynamic. It's like they literally made a TV show out of it. But yeah, you need to do your show on that stuff, Pam. We'll be in there.
Yeah, I've lost y'all for some reason. It's just my system is just cutting up so bad.
Oh, no.
Hold on, y'all. Okay, here we are. I'm sorry. I lost y'all off my screen. All right.
Are you back? You can hear me
I'm
okay
back.
without choppiness? Okay, awesome.
I'm back.
Yeah, and it's going to sound the same to establish a pattern.
Yeah. Because like I said, those keywords, oh, I'm so loud. Those keywords are always, that S word keeps coming up. And that S word started at the arrest, right before the arrest. So that word keeps coming up. And it just seems like every time you hear somebody saying that keeps coming up. And I'm just very curious. I don't know if, and I'm speaking for myself, I don't know if I would allow somebody to do that and I live and they don't, and I do not go to the police about that.
I don't know. And I think it's tough. Like,
I mean, there is no way around it. You don't play S word somebody. That's not anything that you're playing with. And so if someone is doing that, I'm just curious as to why there would be no, and that's just, it's a me thing, because that's someone that if we go on what we're reading, someone is literally trying to take, prune you from the timeline. So I'm just curious about this wording. This is just me talking. And y'all leave Jazz alone. She's having to process all this information, just like we have to process this information. And so it is a little unreeling. So y'all leave Jazz alone. You know, we love Jazz. We love everyone here. We want to make sure that, you know, everyone be able to speak their opinion without feeling like they're going to be bombarded with anything. And I may be overreaching. This is your channel, Kat, but I don't
No,
want
that's all
anybody.
fine. I mean, when I see these headlines, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, there's like there's a new person. Here we go. And then I get into it, and you know, I go through my own processing on my own. And I don't really mind when people have a different opinion. And I don't blame people at all if they haven't heard something, because I don't think it's very easy to keep up with what's going on with this case. We just read how many articles? Three articles. And I mean, great, we get some additional quotes from these same two accusers, but these two accusers are not people that we have not been referenced before. We have some new quotes, but did we see any new information being reported? Not new stuff to us, but stuff that's new reporting that someone just reading these news articles would see about the trial, about testimony at the trial, even about things like the NYPD arrest or NYPD probable cause. You don't see them add any new context that hasn't been the same thing reported over 10 times. It's just cyclical. It's the same facts. We've got article after article, but
And this is that thing, how it hurts. You know, when you can pull people that have had a relationship with you and that relationship ended, I am quite sure you could pull several young men from 20 plus years ago when I was out here dalliancy that could tell you how toxic and stuff I was, how I lived in chaos and all this other stuff, that I would definitely, as I am today, wouldn't want that information to be pulled, you know, to be pulled up. But it's just like I'm not saying it happened. I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I am saying that I am curious as to why. And if you did not file the charges, again, people file when they're ready to do what they need to do. But also at the same time, it always brings open the floodgates. I'm still reeling, y'all. This is where I'm reeling from. I'm reeling to the fact that you were telling me that there are women out here who are crowd surfing victims, and that bothers my spirit. That bothers my spirit that we are into, and this is all in these gender wars, that we are so focused on getting at this man at any cost that we don't even think about the stuff that's going on. And people say, well, you know, he should have thought about this and he should have thought about that. Absolutely. I'm quite sure he's still thinking about that. But I am curious as to, if all of these things have happened, I need for you now not to talk about it in the press. I need you to press charges. That's what I need for you to do. If these are the things that are going on. Now, are there statutes of limitations about these things? I don't know, because one of the ladies said something about going on in something happening in Arizona, correct? Did that incident
when they
happen?
were on a trip, I think there was a mention of something being on a trip. So you might be right. So it could be two different jurisdictions that maybe Arizona's different. But at the same time, then they say, I do want to read. So Miss Lady points out he may have filed in June talking about going to the police precincts, but he told the police about his injuries the night of. So what's unusual is that nobody documented, even with the DV expert officer there, nobody documented what he said and told them and clearly showed them on body cam footage. That's what's unusual. And then, it could be two different jurisdictions as far as, you know, statute of limitations for that. But there are some inconsistencies in just the little bit of information that we get. And there's always going to be a problem with people not wanting to substantiate something further. You know, we don't know that these people would have been willing to testify, and there's no avenue open that anyone's pursuing where they're going to testify under oath, right? So, and we're just getting a couple cut and piece sentences from these statements. And then Dawn saying, so Did Kat read that JM abused one of these women by throwing her across the room pregnant, and then he told her to get an abortion, and then he later calls her to say she should have kept it because she was jealous? Like, because he was jealous.
Wasn't that didn't that the thing that's what I was referring to? Didn't that happen in Arizona when she went to go?
Let me pull up this New York Times
That
and
was
just
the
type
one that I was
Arizona.
referring to. That this was a lot going on.
Okay, so if I'm back, maybe it was a different detail in. Let me present this again.
I don't think
Maybe
I
it
don't
was
know.
a different.
I don't know if it was in the Rolling Stone. Was it in the New York article?
Let me check for Arizona in the Rolling Stone. Was it New Mexico?
Mm-hmm.
Not Arizona. I think it might have been New Mexico. Hold on. Let me search for New Mexico. No, I don't think it was that either. There was something though. Maybe I typed the word trip? During the trip. Okay. Santa Fe.
Okay.
But New Mexico was abbreviated. That's why it didn't work. So, Miss Duncan, where are we starting off? There's an argument in the car. In 2016, threatened to strangle her. Chaudhry confirms there's an argument in the car, but Mr. Majors didn't threaten that. And then later that same month, so July 2016, Miss Duncan visited Mr. Majors in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he was filming Hostels opposite Christian Bale. During the trip, she discovered messages between Mr. Majors and another woman on his Apple Watch. When Miss Duncan confronted him, Mr. Majors threw the watch out of the taxi window. She said, an incident that Miss Chaudhry confirms. So, then she starts packing her things. Majors pushed Miss Duncan into the couch and began to choke her. He also stated, I'm going to kill you. He then threw her body across the room and said, I'm going to make sure you can't have children. When she made moves to leave, he apologized. So, and then this is the same girlfriend here then too, right? Another incident a few months later in October 2016, Mr. Majors picked up Miss Duncan after an argument and slammed her body into their mailbox. She had bruising on her back and arms and pain afterward. The statement says, Mr. Majors also threatened to kill himself, a threat he repeated in later altercations. So, bruise her forehead. Is this the one that says she has, yeah, she stands by it and everything's well documented. So,
Okay.
but we'll see. So, the other part of this was dating someone else. This is the one who tried to leave but never left, but then finally left when there was an affair. Chaudhry says she slapped and hit him several times. Was it the other girl then who he did the thing with the ex?
I thought
Okay,
it
so
was
Miss Hooper. Miss Hooper got pregnant a few months into the relationship. When she told Mr. Majors she had scheduled an abortion in 2 weeks, he insisted she'd do it sooner. So this is I think it's two different people. Right?
So push that up just a little bit. I want to read this whole paragraph.
Oh yeah. That's the only time the word pregnant comes up on the screen is here.
Miss Hooper got pregnant a few months into the relationship when she told Mr. Majors that she had scheduled an abortion 2 weeks. He insisted that she do it sooner. She said in the statement, Mr. Majors dropped her off at the clinic where he was advised that Miss Hooper would need an escort home, she said. But when she called him afterwards to pick her up, he said he was heading to a rehearsal. Because she believed that Mr. Majors wouldn't tolerate her discussing the situation with anyone, the statement says she couldn't call a friend. She feigned an escort and walked herself home. I felt trapped and alone. She said later in an interview with the Times.
Damn. Daisy says, hello, Daisy. Although Angelina Chapin, the writer of the Cut article, said the sloth was wrapped tightly around her neck so much that she couldn't breathe in her tweet, she uses the word strangled. She tweeted this, when I met the lawyer for celebs like Jen Shah and Jonathan Majors, she almost strangled me with a baby-sized stuffed sloth. People want to be victims so bad. People want to use this very visual language. Like, wow. Hold on, I missed something else. Okay, so Daisy also said that author Angelina was against Jonathan Majors during the trial. She retweeted during the trial someone saying, I so appreciate how Angelina Shopping grapples the at name with the complexities and gives voices to what Grace Jabari seemed to be experiencing. A criminal trial did nothing to hold him meaningfully accountable and will do nothing to address what led him to violence. Great. So, they've always been like this. Ugh.
I had to go back and look at this S word, and I just Googled it, and this is what they sent me to, and it says the S word in the first degree is a Class C felony as well as a violent felony offense. If convicted, the maximum possible prison sentence is 15 years. You will face at least 3.5 years in prison, as a sentence of just probation is not an option. So to answer Jazz's question, because that was in the initial charges, he was not offered a plea deal.
They could have offered him one after May.
They could have, but at that point, when he decided,
so how did they offer one to Kevin Porter Jr.?
I don't know, but they did not offer Jonathan Majors one. But a lot of that, Kevin Porter probably went in and said, look, this is hampering my career. I need to play, because if I don't play, I don't make any money, versus, Jonathan Majors getting some.
Well, they offered him one and he turned it down. And I am assuming that the terms of it changed at some point, but he initially turned one down, Kevin Porter Jr. So, yeah, I agree.
It does sound like the testimony. That's why I was looking to see if there was going to be any delineation in what I'm seeing. And that's why I'm saying I'm just so curious that this S word keeps coming up. It all seems to come up the same time. And if you're talking about when they started investigating this, it all happened right before the investigation happened way before the May trial, way before they had to drop those charges, because GJ said that didn't happen. And so they were already they were already convicted to be able to use this word several times. So you see it coming across a lot of these different things. And again, I'm not here to tell you anything. I'm only speaking from my perspective. You try to keep me from breathing, I am calling the police on you if I make it out of that. And I'm just being real about that. So I don't see why people are so.
And we also know that she lied about it, especially after watching Lucero's body cam footage today, Grace Jabari specifically. So when it comes to this case, anything involving that for this case, regardless of what conclusions you want to come through from reading these articles today, from the evidence in the Jonathan Majors case, the testimony, and the body cams that we're able to see, she stated she was choked. Or we have Swain lying multiple times. Strangulation did not happen. It wasn't a thing at all. So there is no need to even prove that he may have threatened verbally, we have no text records of it, to do that to somebody else. It wouldn't even prove a pattern that Jabari experienced, because the instance where it was ever alleged, it absolutely unequivocally did not happen.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, I don't know, like the opposite of a red herring. Or maybe it is a red herring. Because we're so focused on that thing to associate it with him. But it has nothing to do with what he was on trial for.
Yeah, but and like I said, for all of these, I want to be able to see some more movement. Just say that, oh, this is what happened, because I hate for them to feel like the news media is using them for clicks and views and views and clicks. I would definitely want to see that there would be, you know what I'm saying, that if you're coming out like this and you've pulled the courage to be able to do what you need to do, you need to take it all the way through. I'd hate to know that this was just coming out for clicks and views just because this is the time du jour for you to do some things, and then it does nothing else matriculates through that.
Yeah, and Erica points out too is obviously with Kevin Porter Jr., his girlfriend went public that she wasn't going to play her along, so they had to split the baby with a deal.
Mm.
So, but yeah,
It's,
any closing thoughts, Pam? We are
it,
approaching tomorrow. It's 4 minutes away from tomorrow where I am.
oh my goodness. It's just it to me, it's just unfortunate. Like I said, I am curious to see what is coming up. I think, like I said, I think that this was the back door that they were looking to get that information because the news media wants this information out. And so this was the back door. And in order to do that, and like I said, this is just Pamela speaking. I think RS, that publication, realized that their reputation is not as solidified in the public's eye, but they do see that the NYT, their reputation in the public is sounder. So this information coming from them, and then they just refer to their article, even though they're referring to RS is referring to the NYT, which is referring back to the RS article. You notice that little exchange and stuff like that. So we'll see. We will see. We will see. Because like I
So
said,
Daisy's also saying here too, for Hooper, the New York Times says she has contemporaneous journal entries, text messages, photos, and in Miss Hooper's case, medical records. Was that a tweet somewhere? Let me search that text. Yeah, right. Are we going to get 2 pages of redacted text again?
I don't know. That's an interesting question, Erica. Erica writes medical records for the termination pregnancy or some other thing.
True. Right, because Hooper was the one. Is that Hooper's the one, right? With the abortion? Yeah.
I mean, we can't say that didn't happen. But she said that, according to the way this reason, she scheduled the abortion.
Yep. I
Hmm.
don't know. And that's the thing, you'll never put these people on the stand to really vet it out and see it.
Yeah, but how could they? Because like I said, all of this, they the if they were in different jurisdictions, those jurisdictions, they have not filed it within their jurisdiction. There was no hearing or anything to beyond that. These people were still in relationships even after these quote unquote bad acts happened. I do know that someone said it was difficult to get out of that relationship. And I'm not, again, I'm telling y'all, I'm not out here trying to make it seem like Mr. Majors was a choir boy. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's a lot of different things that are going on here that, to me, like I said, if the S word is the S word and we are serious and we understand what that means, from Pam's opinion, there's no way in the world that I'm going to sit here and you try to prune me from the timeline and I am not going to call the police. And I'm being real deal Holyfield right here. These are 2 Caucasian women, and they know that the police will be behind them regardless. So I'm in confusion as to then all of this stuff has happened and the police were not called. I have seen the police called on a man for less than this. So I am very, very curious. But that's Pamela. That's the curiosity that uh, I need to, in my brain, I need to relegate in my brain because it sounds like, uh, how we see people who we think they are instead of who they actually are. And we want the marriage and we want all of the babies and we want all of these different things. And men don't want those things, so to speak.
Or
Again,
sometimes there's that bait. Like, I don't know if you'll like, I don't want to say this is always how it happens, but oh, I think I'm gonna get an abortion because they want them to say like, no, baby, keep it. Like, so they'll put the idea out there with just to get the and at the same time, most people probably have back and forth decisions. I don't think everybody knows absolutely they want to keep or get rid of when they first become pregnant. It's probably a lot of decision making. So it's possible you might suggest something at one point and genuinely also change your mind, and maybe you're saying it out loud to start a discussion and don't have good communication skills to start it in a way that isn't a weird way to start it.
Shanice. Oh, Shanice, you got me tickled.
But this is like a great point from so Daisy. Now Daisy has me looking back at this paragraph too. The Times obtained the statements before trial. The interactions they described were subsequently confirmed. So the interactions we've heard about were subsequently confirmed to the Times by multiple friends of the women in whom they confided, as well as by contemporaneous journal entries, text messages, photos, and, in Miss Hooper's case, medical records. So we heard about an incident that probably is the abortion.
Could be. Could be. And again, here's the thing. I don't know where this happened with Miss Hooper. But in my state, you walk in and you have injuries that may appear to be that someone has injured you. The police are called to the ER, to the hospital, because our doctors are mandated to report any of those things. And if they don't report those bruises and things that they see, they go to jail, they go to prison, they have to answer. So I know the physicians in my state are like, anything that look if you got a scratch, anything like that, a bruise on your face or your cheek, or any bruising around your neck, or any bruising on your hands, scratches and stuff like that, they are documenting and they're calling the police. Now, if you decide not to say anything, the police still have the right to investigate the bruising and all of that different stuff. That's in my state, and this has been happening in my state since the 2000s. So, my state is as regressive as it comes. I live in Alabama. My state is as regressive as it comes, but according to those types of things, that's what they have to do. And so I am very curious in other states like that, do they do the same things? Because you going to having medical records and saying that, you have been S-word, the police are going to be called immediately. You have any bruises on your back? I don't know. She went whenever
Or even
this
if you don't say it, even if they just suspect it,
yeah,
they could still call it in. So, and are supposed to. But I'm wondering if it's the other way. Could she have been upset because she wanted to keep the baby? I'm wondering if it's the other way because I'm looking at the paragraph again. Hold on, let me pull it right back up.
I also found it weird that she walked home when she could have phoned a friend or called an Uber.
So this is the text here. Miss Hooper got pregnant a few months into the relationship when she told Mr. Majors that she had scheduled an abortion. And these are actors, right? Upcoming actors who care about their bodies. Women, unfortunately, can age out of Hollywood very quickly. Mr. Majors, that she had scheduled an abortion in 2 weeks. He insisted that she do it sooner. She said in the statement, Mr. Majors dropped her off at the clinic, where he was advised that Miss Hooper would need an escort home, she said. Now, there's certain procedures that I don't believe take that long. If it was very early, maybe that's why there's do it 2 weeks earlier.
Again, I don't know what state this was in, but certain states had a different time limits as when
and you have to get up in there earlier, especially to do it like a pill method versus an extraction method.
right. So that depends. But I again, it's one thing if you don't want to call a friend, but there is another thing that where did this happen? Do we know?
And it's because she believed.
Where did she get her abortion from? Where did she get that done at? I mean, does it say?
Do we know where she lives? I think was this the Yale girlfriend? Let me just search for the first appearance of Hooper. Um,
Miss Duncan and Miss so it had to be Yale. New York Times.
yeah, I think that was because Chautauqua was Duncan,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, and that's in Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
And that's a more liberal state. And that is a state that where you can get a taxi. I'm being serious, because you
What I'm
in
saying
my
is like, if he was so concerned about everything, why would he even drive away? It seems to me like she went and he wasn't aware of what she was going there. It possibly. It seems possible that she's reverse engineering this abortion that she may have actually gotten and then being like, yeah, he didn't want anyone to find out about it and he wanted me to get it sooner. But she's saying he takes me there and then drives away, but doesn't want anyone to know about it at the same time. Wouldn't you make sure you picked her up no matter what?
in what car? Because he has done interviews saying that he was struggling. In what car was he in? I mean, I'm not saying that he couldn't have a car, but he didn't mention that because he was mentioning how his credit card, his debit card was canceling. I'm trying to figure out what car, but that's neither here nor there. That's just me remembering different interviews. But I'm just saying that in
Okay,
my
so Erica's
state,
saying it's a liability to not have someone have a way home. And that kind of makes sense because like, you're same thing like if you go to like a dentist or sometimes they can't do the procedure unless they know you have a ride home. They're not supposed to.
would they not? I mean, would the clinic, knowing that they had that type of liability, would they allow for her to walk home? I'm I if you all know it in the chat, I mean, if you do know it, I'm curious. To walk after a procedure like that, it doesn't seem like it would be feasible. But it doesn't also seem like, because I know people go to those clinics and they go by themselves. I do know that. But it just seems like to walk home, that would be a lot, and that would be a lot on your body. And because hospitals don't even let you walk out of the hospital. They carry you. They push you in a wheelchair
Oh,
to your
like or anything too. Yeah, yeah. When you're actually leaving.
when you're leaving the hospital. They push you to uh the car. And so I'm trying to figure out, do clinics like that allow for you to just walk? I mean, I have had outpatient procedures and they just don't allow for you to just get up and walk and get into your car and drive off. They
It
don't allow.
sounds like the ultimate sympathy story, and I'm probably clouded because I've heard people use the sympathy story before, like legitimately, not the walking home part. And separately, right? I've heard stories like, "Oh, it's so cool and I had to walk home." I haven't heard the two details together, but I've heard people use the sympathy story, I had to walk home, but they could have just called and gotten a ride some other way. Here we have an extra factor where she's not supposed to even be able to choose to walk home. But then you have the idea of like people weaponizing an abortion. They'll choose to go get an abortion and then weaponize it as a story afterwards. Well,
Mm.
I had to get an abortion, but maybe it was actually their choice initially and they changed their mind and had regret about it.
Well, that's
Or
what it said. That's what it said.
they
She said she scheduled. I mean,
she
we didn't.
scheduled it.
She had scheduled it. Again, like I said, I don't know all of that stuff, but the way it's reading that she scheduled it and they wanted him to obligate himself, again, do not mishear me, y'all. I'm just saying things are not making sense to me in my head. If you're going to get something like that done, even if you did not have anybody, I just can't see you walking home with that type of procedure. Again, I've had outpatient, all I had was the crud taken out of my knee, and I couldn't leave and go home, drive myself home. That for me doesn't make any sense. I'm not discounting what these people are telling you, ladies and gentlemen.
Because you never know. There could be shoddy work being done at wherever this happened, right? It could just be someone not doing their job as a staff member.
That to me doesn't make any sense.
But
Now,
just as a consideration.
yeah, it's just it doesn't, when you read it and you read it again, this is just a way, you have to just kind of dissect these articles instead of just like, because things got to make sense. And when things don't make sense to me, then I question everything about it. Because that doesn't make any sense. That's to reeling on your sister. Oh my gosh, she went to go get rid of your baby and you wouldn't even do this, you wouldn't even do that. Were they together?
So she feigned an escort. So did someone there physically with her just like pretend to be her escort?
The article says she feigned an escort, meaning she lied, so they would let her leave, believing she had a way home. Again, I see
But that could, what, at face value, we could accept her at her whole story, but we could also question, what if she just didn't want someone to know that she had to get an abortion? That's a sensitive thing that some people don't ever want to say that they've been through.
Mhm.
Some people want to, especially if they're religious, they don't want to have to turn around and be like, well, I am deeply religious and maybe I've criticized other people. Maybe I've been pro-life and I don't want other people to know that I did this thing that I criticize. So for someone to feign their way out of a clinic doesn't even mean it's because of the other person. It could be for their own reputation or desire to just not want to talk to anybody or anything.
Yeah, that is something that for me is boggling my mind, because whatever you think about it, if we take the politics out of it, that's still a medical procedure, an outpatient medical procedure. And I'm just still boggled that you walked home. I am boggled. That boggles me. But again, you all, if you see this from a certain standpoint, you see why things like this cannot make it into court procedures and anything like that.
So do they show ID? So for Yale Medicine, you need to be at least 18 years old. That to me suggests they need to verify that they're an adult coming to pick you up. So does that mean an ID check? Because you can't just say then someone's here for me and they don't come in and show their ID.
Well, that's my whole point, because again, that's why I was saying, when you leave that place, when I had my outpatient procedure, Kat, it said in that paperwork, do not make certain decisions because you've been under anesthesia. Do not participate in certain types of physical activities because you've been under anesthesia. You're supposed to go home and rest. You can get up and go to the restroom. You can get up, but you're not supposed to do all of these different things. This is why I'm saying, if she's talking about he walked home, I, I'm not saying that it could not have been done, but that was very, very risky when you could have ordered a taxi. You're in a situation that you can order a taxi. Where I live at in Alabama, taxis are not as prevalent because most of everyone has a car. But I do know that people who live up in New York and New Jersey and things like that, a car is not necessary to get around. Where I live at, and Kat, you live in Florida, it's necessary for you to have a car to get around. You don't have taxis, and I mean, there's Ubers and all this other stuff. Please do not get me wrong.
But this would have been like 2000 in the I don't know. Uber, it's not that Uber wasn't really around yet, but I don't think people widely adapted it.
Right.
Until like maybe, I don't know, I guess like 5 years ago. I mean, maybe it launched quicker in Yale because it's closer to New York City and it's near a university that would have a need for it. But we didn't have a lot of Uber until, I don't know, like 20, you couldn't really get a ride for years, even though the app existed.
But Kat, like I said, I lived in New Jersey for a stint, but public transportation up in those areas, and like I said, you're from New York, public transportation is top tier as far as being able to get around and to do the things you need to do. So I couldn't see, even if you didn't get a taxi, even if you didn't do anything, I'm quite sure that there was a train station, a subway station, or something wherever it is you were at that you could have get. I just can't see you walking home, uh, unless it's less than a block away. So
Yeah, but I'm gonna go with Erica because I don't have the experience,
I don't
and
have
she's like, I'm gonna let you know you cannot walk, like you physically can't do it. It's not that they're not going to let you walk; it's that you physically
right.
cannot do it. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
I see.
I can't imagine, and I can't imagine having to go through that without someone being there with me. But I understand that people go on their own. I had someone ask me a long time ago to take them because I wasn't that close of a friend to them, and
Mhm.
I think that was because there's distance between the people that know you and that you might feel embarrassed if they find out that you go and do this. So for that reason, they felt comfortable asking me to drive them, but they didn't want to ask someone who anyone I would have considered a closer friend.
Erica
Because,
said it.
you
Erica
have a new
said
one.
it in her
Erica's been saying it.
she says afterwards you continue to there's just no way that I could just sit there that you're walking. I You're walking, you're in pain. Uh and like I said, if you're up north, I just don't see that you don't have uh adequate transportation to take you somewhere. Um that just it does it for me. It does, because like I said, I don't know, but Erica is swinging in this chat, and I'm gonna swing with her in these chats because she's the one that's saying that she has thing. But I just it doesn't make plausible sense. That doesn't make plausible sense to me. Uh, just
I
say
just
it.
think someone had something to take care of, wanted to get it done. I mean,
Yeah, just say that he didn't
maybe
want to
there's
go.
text messages. Maybe there's text messages where he's like, "Ha ha ha, you have to walk now." Ha ha. Like, and then we'll have to sit here and be like, "Damn, we've got some egg on our face, guys."
I don't think that it's even that. I think that their relationship had come to an end. The announcement of pregnancy didn't give what she thought it was going to give. And the relationship, and you're looking at someone who's, I'm just thinking it's that situation, and now it's like I'm gonna make him seem like he's like this. He was a bad boyfriend. If we can, I can throw my hands up there, but you just not gonna get me to believe that you all of that and you gonna walk. It's like having the absolute ones. Oh, girl.
Oh my god. So, Shanice, so Priya, uh, can you demonstrate how you walked home? Can you show us? Can you show us how you walked after getting the procedure?
I don't think the
Ah.
clinic would have taken that type. That's why I'm saying I don't think that the clinic would have taken that type of liability, because what if she had passed out in the middle of the street? Do you know the political ramifications of that? I'm being serious, y'all. Y'all realize that, because the that act is such a polarizing political issue. Can you imagine if something like that happened, how that clinic would be demonized because they allowed this woman to go walk home? I'm just
Because that's like, and then people are so sensitive about access to medical care, not just the abortion procedure debate, right? But it's two
yeah,
things there that would be hot water. And Kai Lawrence, I agree. It sounds like weaving truth with lies.
yeah. You just
And then
couldn't.
there's these other things like I've seen so many girls chase their boyfriends down the sidewalk, swinging at them, hitting at them, and they end up like falling, and someone's going like this. Like, for all we know, this whole where did this mailbox story comment go? How do you get bruised by a mailbox? Could be
And
chasing someone out the house.
let me ask you something. Look, again, I want my northerner people to comment for me because I'm confused. So y'all have the mailboxes on the street? Because when I lived in New Jersey, your mailbox was it wasn't on the street. It was like almost toward on your house where we lived at. The mailbox, you had to come up on the porch, or you had a community mailbox. And that was usually in the where I lived at. It was the community mailbox was in the building that we had.
That's true. Yeah, they could be at one of the.
So so I'm just asking y'all. So people who live in houses in up in the New York, Connecticut area, tell me how your mailboxes are, because where I live at here, uh unless your house was built before 2010, you have a community mailbox. The community goes to one big mailbox, big bustle booth of mailboxes, and you go get your mail from the thing. They don't drop the mailboxes. They don't drop the mail on the street anymore because we had such a big problem of people stealing checks and money and medication and all kinds of stuff like that. So now we have community mailboxes. My community mailbox is right in front of my house. Right after Jabari was arrested, the RS story dropped. Yeah.
So that was June 29th, 2023, 10:07 p.m. is where I'm getting and I think I can send links as the channel owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me know if you guys can see that link.
I see it.
Okay, cool. So, but that if that's the article you're referring to, Lauren, that was June 29th. And then Artemis, yeah, let's not forget that none of this article justifies Jabroni chasing that man for 5 blocks and locking herself in his home and stealing his property in heels.
Yeah.
Tracker.
That's the whole point. That's why I think that this information, where the prosecution was trying to bring it in, you all have to clearly and understand. This sounds like stuff that was happening in several different jurisdictions. This sounds like stuff that was happening that no one, like there's no police reports. There's no way that you're being able to prove that. And so it is going to be prejudicial for someone who has a bad relationship. I mean, again, y'all, let's stop being obtuse. A lot of us have bad relationships. I keep trying to explain to y'all. If you'd have caught me in my 20s and the chaos that I brought, there's nobody there that's going to tell you that when they broke up with me, it was a happy thing and we just walked around. Thank you, it's Sheed. Yeah. This is according to the link. Okay. Suburban mailboxes out on the street. Okay. Thank you so much. Because I was like, the mailboxes I remember was in the building. You had to exactly. I think it's 20 on 10. But again, don't let me coerce your thing, and y'all leave Jazz alone in the comments because everybody's trying to process this information. But it's another thing about trying to figure out what makes sense. What makes sense to me is you have some women that are saying that they've had a bad relationship with him. I can't tell you yes, no, indifferent, or any of those things. I can just go by what I hear. He says he's never laid hand on a woman. They're saying that he did. There's his truth, there's her truth, and then there is the truth. It's right there in the middle.
And there's the one testimony under oath that is inconsistent all across the board. So, with no actual previous allegations of physical abuse. So, no pattern. And now we have these other people insinuating a pattern of their own within their own micro relationship.
And all those patterns have the same type of situation that's going on. Yeah, being a bad. Can you imagine if I if I could go back and accuse the men that I dated of a crime when I know? Because listen, I'm just gonna be real with y'all. I'm not gonna sit up here and act like I didn't swing at a guy. I'm not gonna do it.
This is really what it boils down to. So Daisy put it side by side, and we've had fragmented conversations here, but this makes no sense. Duncan says in 2016, he began to choke her and also stated, "I'm going to kill you." And that when she made moves to leave, he apologized. She stayed with him until 2019. But then, in 2019, when she realized that Mr. Majors was continuing an affair, he made a fist and stated, "Don't make me punch you," the statement says. She left the relationship not long after. That's like a weird thing to say someone says after you're having an affair, you're continuing an affair, "Don't make me punch you." It's not really like what I would respond to someone accusing me of having an affair.
Let me tell you, let me just explain something to you. And I'm being very serious. I'm being real serious.
I'm here, I'm listening.
Daisy is out here doing yeoman's work. Do you hear me? Every time we come up with something, she dissects it. Daisy, We need you to come up. Daisy, we need for you to get you a channel, get you a true crime channel and dissect this stuff because you are showing completely out. And I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Because stuff that I didn't
Getting
even
all the
think of.
love.
Yeah. I because I'm like, okay, that makes some sense. That makes some sense to dissect this stuff down because I'm like, yeah, it sounds like she left due to affair, not abuse. Because again, the S word and you threatening to prune me from the timeline, and I'm going to stay. Yeah, you got to read them, and like I said,
Makes sense to me. Just kidding. And then
it's
yeah, then he was violent. Then he was all this and that, and then oh no, there's a side chick. I gotta leave. All right. Any last closing thoughts, Pam? Because it is my bedtime.
I
Had
look.
a nice little pajama shirt on. Had to put on some flannel to come do this, and now I'm
Yeah,
like, man, I need some sleep. I'm tired.
like I said, I think that we have that we're just going to see. Only thing that we can do is see, watch, and wait to see if this information influences the sentencing, if this information influences what is it, the set aside of the motion, to see if this influences it. I don't know.
They want him to get struck with that ear because then they can say it was something crazy.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't know. That's my whole thing. I'm gonna leave out of here with that. Y'all in the chat, y'all stay
You
cool,
guys
stay easy.
all have a good night. Thank you all for being here, not just to participate and share your thoughts, but also point out all the little details that you see that I miss reading them. You guys have a good night.